and say browse all packages. I'll wait while this comes up. Uh-oh. That's interesting. Great. Well, let's just do this one more time. If not, we'll just talk around it. No, okay. So I was hoping to show you there where you go to download the DITA Open Toolkit. But essentially, if you go to Projects DITA OT in SourceForge, you'll go to the download page for the DITA Open Toolkit. And what you want to grab is the DITA OT 143, the full easy install version. Full easy install is nice because it contains all of the software that you need to run the Open Toolkit. So all you have to do is download the file, unzip it to a directory, and then start to work with it. Now, in 143, they've made a wonderful change because previously we always had to tell people, be very, very, very careful where you install the DITA Open Toolkit because if there are spaces anywhere in the file name, things will fall apart. We had people often installing the DITA Open Toolkit in My Documents, and if you know the path to My Documents, that's in Documents space and space Settings, your name, etc., etc. And so there would be spaces, and the Open Toolkit would fall on its face. So in 143, they've removed that restriction about spaces, so this is really a nice thing. Now, as I talk about the DITA Open Toolkit, you may see some places I'll just say this is in DITA OT. When I say DITA OT, this just means wherever you install the DITA Open Toolkit. And so we can see here, as I showed you earlier, bring that on screen and wait while it appears. What I started out with here was I had the full easy install, and all I did was unzip it, and I installed it in a folder called DITA OT 143. And so this is the Open Toolkit, and this is where we're going to be doing most of our work. So when you run the DITA OT, as I said before, you use the start command.bat file. If you're on Unix, then you use the start command.shell. But why don't we just go ahead and do this right now? So we just come here and double-click start command.bat. What this does is it sets up a number of environment variables and also makes sure a number of class paths for Java are enabled so that then when you run the Open Toolkit, everything works. So now one little tip here. When you launch this, it opens the window. If you want to, I've pre-configured several things in here, the colors and the font size, so they're a little bit easier to read during the presentation. You can come here to this dialog, and you can change the colors. You can change the fonts, the font size, and a number of things. And then when you say OK, it actually gives you this dialog, and you can say apply the properties to the current window or save the properties. So if you say save the properties, then in the future, anytime you open the Open Toolkit, it will open with your saved properties. So we're just going to say save. Here we are. So now, let me clear off some windows so I can actually remember what I'm talking about. We can remove the DOS window. We can remove the Explorer for right now. So once we're at the DOS prompt, see how old I am, I still call it that. At the DOS prompt, we can now run the DITA Open Toolkit. We run that with an ant command. And so if we want to, we can say ant, which is how we launch ant, -f, and build demo.xml. This starts off a demonstration ant project that is set up in the Open Toolkit. So you can. This is a good way of just testing and making sure that everything works. And so you'll start to see. Now they've changed it. 143. It's new. It used to just go ahead and do a build, Now they've actually added some prompts to it. And so you can just take the prompts as you go through. We're going to choose hierarchy data map. We want our output to go to the out folder. And we want to do web, which is or HTML output. So we'll take all those and just continue. So I'm going to let that run in the background while I chat for a little bit more. Now, of course, if you have people who are have a phobia about the command line interpreter, they don't like to do things, or it just feels so 80s or 70s to run things from the command line, you can always create batch jobs or shell scripts or various things to launch the Open Toolkit. And actually, it didn't take all that long. It's done, and so we can see through the output. We got a lot of output from Ant. And then at the end, we have this wonderful phrase, build successful. So that tells us everything worked the way it was supposed to. So anyway, there are alternatives to using the command line. If you have people who don't like the command line, you can always set up batch files and things like that. So we talked a little bit about the Ant files already. Now, the DITA Open Toolkit contains some demo files, some basic files that set things up. These are included in Ant operation. But the best place to go for a lot of the best place to go for actually seeing and modifying your Ant that you're going to be doing is you go to the samples folder, and in the samples folder there's a folder called Ant sample. And in Ant sample, you'll see there are a number of template files. These are templates that you can go in and modify and do various things with. But actually, we're going to focus mostly on a file called sample XHTML. And so why don't we open that? And so here we are looking at the Ant file. Now I need to do one other thing in the background here. Hang on. Okay. Oh, just a little bit, just rolling back. I was just looking at some of the other slides I should cover. That's right. So the sample underscore XHTML file that we're taking a look at, this automatically processes the files that are in DITA OT samples hierarchy data map. And when it runs, it automatically puts our output in samples and sample out. So let's just take a look at that. So we can run this sample with Ant F samples, Ant samples, Ant sample. You also have to pay attention here. They've used plurals in some places and singulars in others, so pay attention to the file names as you're going through this. And then sample XHTML. And in this case, there are no prompts. It actually just runs straight. Does a number of initializations, copies some files, takes a look at the data map, does some pre-processing on the contents of the data map, then finally converts those pre-processed files and generates our output. And so let's just take a look, because we're going to be going back and forth from these through the rest of this. So here we have it in Ant samples. There's now an out folder. And here's samples folder in there and XHTML. And here, this is the output that we just generated. Notice it's 1135. So we can open index.html. And this is what we get. We'd say just a simple table of contents. And we can click on any one of these and look at the content